Welcome to episode 400 of Nigeria's longest running business podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based sales consultant and business consultant Tavishima George Ayede. Today I'd like us to look at several questions. Is there such a thing as a brand loyalist? Those are those customers who buy from you time and time again, people who are loyal to what it is that you do. And is there such a thing as discount-driven customers or price-sensitive customers? The people who are only concerned about price when they hit you up on the DM, when they send you an email, when you get that phone call, or if you run into them at the bridal expo or some other kind of trade fair or business fair. So, yes, both of these categories of customers, however it is that you want to call them, exist. So, we have some customers that come along because they believe in your hype, they want to work with you, they've seen all the lovely stuff that you put out on the website, what else? Instagram. They believe your gospel, and and they want to work with you. So your responsibility in this scenario when you run across these people is to make sure that you have a responsive and well thought out sales process for engaging with them. Now, what does being responsive means? It just means basically that you respond to messages, inquiries, and all kinds of engagements as and when they happen. Because if you're in the habit of returning phone calls 2 days later, or replying emails a week later, or replying DMs 2 weeks later, then 2 weeks later, then you're going to lose a lot of business, even though it happens to be these people who are not so price sensitive. Because whether we like it or not, there is some sort of commoditization in the industry, and if people are not price sensitive and they put you within a certain class, so let's say they think you are a high-end wedding photographer or a high-end planner or whatever, most likely they're going to have you in a bracket of 2 or 3 other people. So sometimes it boils down to whoever it is that responds to that phone call, to that SMS, to that email, or to that DM first. Sometimes those are the critical things that put you in the lead, and so we have to make sure that we have a well thought out process so that when we get to them as quickly and responsively as possible, we have a process from guiding them through the initial conversation all the way to finding out what their perfect vision is, how we can fulfill that, and then getting them to take the next step, which will ultimately end with them paying a deposit and making that commission to get you to be their service provider for the wedding, or the service provider for whatever it is that you do. For those of you who happen to listen to the podcast and you're not in the wedding or the event space. Now, price-sensitive customers or discount-driven customers, I've heard some people call them cheap customers. I don't like to use that term because it's kind of, what's the word? Okay, I can't remember. But sounds kind of insulting, so I wouldn't call them cheap customers. Well, at least not to their face anyway. So, price-sensitive people, discount-driven people, cheap people, cheapé, whatever it is you want to call them, yes, they also do exist. And I guess the context in how I would like us to deal with this question is what to do when we get rid of discounts and then these people fall away. The reason why I want us to consider it within this context is because that's precisely how I saw it on the gram, where folks were going over what to do when you drop your discounts and then people disappear. So I have a couple of scenarios here that some of you guys might not like, but I think ultimately we don't have much of a choice. We're going to have to do either of these options, or else we just keep on complaining that the cheap people leave every time we raise our prices. So I think the thing to do when you started off with a discount and now you've dropped it and people have disappeared is actually to just stay the course. Raise your prices and deal with the attrition. Now, what is attrition? Attrition is just that simple fact I've referred to, I think, 2 podcast episodes ago. It's just that simple fact that some customers will stop doing business with you because of some factors. Sometimes it's an ease of business thing. They move to another part of town. Maybe they were based in Gwarimpa. You're a cake artist. You're in Gwarimpa, so it was easy. On the way in or the way out of work, they just branch and they pick up the cake. But now maybe they move to Apo or some other area in Garki, or the Lagos mainland and island thing. They used to be in Lekki, but now they live in Ikeja. Those sorts of things. So people move. Ease of business, convenience. Sometimes It might be price, just like we've mentioned when we're dealing with the price-sensitive people or the cheap people, as some people call them. Sometimes it could be a seasonal thing. Maybe you have bad customer service, or maybe it's a defect in your product, or whatever it is. But the bottom line is that people are going to fall out of our funnel and are going to fall away time after time. Yes, I think it was 2 podcast episodes ago where we examined some situations where you have control over some of these factors of attrition, and other factors of attrition where you don't have any control, like when people move away or die. There's nothing you can do about that. So attrition is just the act of customers falling away. Now, if prices were, if prices were low in the beginning, then it's just a normal part of the process that the flow is going to dry up when you raise your prices, because it's an old saying in the sales community that if they came on price, they are going to leave on price. So even if they came on price and you maintained the low prices, but somebody else came with a lower price, they're going to leave on price. So somebody came to you for wedding photography at 150K, and maybe they were your call-to person for everything else, baby shower and bridal shower and on, office functions, blah, blah, blah. But truth of the matter is, as soon as they find somebody who is willing to come in at 130K, they're going to move, because for them, it's inconsequential what the photography is. And 150K, 130K, that's saving of 30K. So they'll just move. So if they come on price, they're going to leave on price. So that's the reason why I recommend that we just have to stay the course and raise our prices and deal with the attrition. So, of course, we're going to have to change our positioning of the business, how we advertise ourselves, how we promote ourselves. And while we change that, we just have to be patient and cope with the famine, in quote, as some people say, when they say feast and famine. So I guess when the prices were low, there was some feasting going on. You had lots of people, you raised the prices, and then cricket is quiet, and then now you're dealing with famine. So stay the course, leave your prices the way they are. In the meantime, we have to change our positioning, how we advertise, how we talk about ourselves, how we promote ourselves, things of that nature, so that we can now start selling ourselves up into a higher market. So you can move beyond that 150K market and now start looking at that 250 or 300, or you started at 400 and you're trying to aim for that 1.2 or whatever it is. Now, are all discount shoppers bad, and the whole thing of dropping your price, is it bad? Maybe not. There are times when I have spoken about in previous podcasts about the right way to use discounts. If this is your first time of listening to the show, just scroll down the three. Now we have 400 episodes. So scroll past down the 400 episodes that we have so far, and look for anything that has discount in the title, and you will get a treatment about how what the best way is to use discounts as a deliberate way to promote the business. So discount shoppers are not entirely bad, because sometimes this whole thing of discounting is a good way to get some traction in the market or to build a portfolio before you're fully confident in your craft. So wedding photographers in particular have been known to use this kind of strategy. So you're coming in, you want to be a wedding photographer, but you don't have a history of satisfied clients before you, and so you decide to come in at the low end or do a couple of things for free, because some people are just trying to build a portfolio. And to be honest, it's something that I did. So the first excuse me about that. So the first set of 8 weddings I did were not at full price. Well, actually, my brother's wedding was one of them. So let's say the first 7 weddings that I did were either for free or for a very small fee, because I wanted to build up a physical portfolio. This was about a decade ago, and so back then there was Flickr, but Instagram wasn't around and stuff like that. So some of us who believed in portfolios for our craft either had to have a an iPad. Yeah, back then I think iPads were the ones that the tablets that were reigning. So we'd have an iPad with a soft copy of everything on it, or you would have a physical portfolio. Now I chose to use the physical portfolio because I wanted to give people a sense of what my work would look like in print, because because I consider myself to be a print photographer. So it's not just about how things look online. I want you to have a sense of what the finished thing is going to look like. So that's how I built my portfolio. And so some of us get into the game by using these discount shoppers and low prices, and stuff like that, until we either build a portfolio or until we are confident in our craft. Now, there are other people who also use discount shoppers or this low pricing model as a market penetration strategy. Now, the idea is to come in at a really low price and then flood the market so that your name is absolutely everywhere. You blast your way into public consciousness, and then after a while, you can raise your prices, and then, of course, you cope with the attrition. Now, something that I must comment on, it requires some capitalization to do this. It requires some money. You either have to have savings or investors, people pumping in cash, basically, because while your prices are low, you have to fund the gap between low prices and low profits. And then also, once you raise your prices, people fall away, and so you're still going to need some money for running costs. So let's say you're a photographer. Well, actually, it's rumored that Kelala, is it Kelala or Klala Photography, I think. So it's rumored, remember, this is a rumor, I'm not saying so authoritatively, but it's something that I heard back when I was in some photography forums. So supposedly that's the thing that Kelala Photography did, based in Lagos. So the way boys say it, at least in the group anyway, was that he came in at 150K for a wedding, and that he flooded social media. So he was all over Instagram, all over Bella Niger, all those wedding blogs, stuff like that. So because he was doing at 150K, and then he had a crew with him, they could be doing 2 or 3 weddings per week. And then, of course, if you're doing 2 or 3 weddings per week, that's looking at 10, 12 weddings in a month. And if you're pushing well, especially also trying to promote on Instagram, then anyhow, you're definitely going to be in wedding blogs and stuff like that. So it was a sustained campaign that lasted for, I would say, close to a year. But then again, I'm not sure about this 150K thing, but that's what people said he was doing. And at the time, my own opinion on the group was, people shouldn't knock the guy's hustle. That if he's coming in at 150K, then he's probably trying to do this low market pricing thing that people do it all the time. It's also the same thing that Amazon did. Amazon made losses for the first 20 years of running because they wanted to acquire customers on the cheap, knowing that they were going to make money on the back end. So this low pricing thing is actually a valid strategy if you have the capital to back it up. So we don't know if Kilala had lots of savings or if he had lots of investors. For Amazon, of course, it was because they had lots of investors who agreed with the business thesis. But that's the whole idea, basically. So just make sure that you're everywhere. And then, of course, after a while, several months, a year, he now raised his prices, and now he's charging supposedly Admiralty Road prices, those high-end photographers in Lekki and in Lagos. So remember that this gist that I just gave you, this story is, a rumored story. So if you happen to know Kelala or Klala, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If you happen to know him, then please, hit him up and connect us so that I can interview him, let him be on the podcast, because I was interested by his meteoric rise, and it would be nice to lend a different perspective here on the podcast. So if it is indeed true, it would be nice to hear from him, because what he did is not the kind of strategy that most photographers would do to get into the game. So if you know him personally, then please hook up the introductions so that I can set the record straight, and so we can learn about exactly what it is that he did. So should price-sensitive customers be avoided? Maybe not, because some businesses have offerings for different ends of the market. For instance, in Abuja here, we have George Okoro, who has now entered into the low-end street retail photography end. So basically that's 50K, 30K markets, doing portraits and stuff like that. I don't know if their wedding packages are that diversified to capture the real low end. So they're capturing all that market between 50K all the way to high end wedding photography. But one thing to note, however, is that he didn't start with the low end retail market. He didn't start with the 50K market. He actually started, well, then again, I'm not saying this firsthand, but George Okoro is rumored to have started high end from the get, and then later on tried to capture lower ends of the market. So started Oh, in fact, I heard that he started at about 800k. I don't know how true that is. So let's just assume that there's some truth to that story. So starting 800 and then working your way down to cover the 50k. And the goal of this kind of strategy for having offerings for different ends of the market basically is to capture as much profit as possible. And that also is an established business strategy. That's one that Toyota uses on us, for instance. Because Toyota, they're the makers of the Corolla, Corona, all these other cars. The number one that we boys buy over here in Abuja and in Lagos. Well, Niger boys basically what we buy. But then they're also the makers of the Lexus. And some people say a Lexus is just a Toyota with a different name. With a different name, with a different chassis, and with the golden letter L. So the strategy is the same. So you make Lexus Jeeps so that Nigerian politicians can buy. You capture the high-end part of the market. And then you also make the Toyota Corolla so that boys in Abuja can buy as well. And then you make a healthy profit because you're capturing the market from boys who are hustling all the way up to politicians and people who hang out in Aso Rock. So yeah, so it's a genuine strategy as well that other folks might also try. So anyway, what's the moral of the story? The whole thing about high end, low end, discounting, attrition, people falling away. I guess the moral of the story is this: that dealing with the low end of the market and discounting and all that isn't such a bad thing so long as you have a plan. If you don't have a plan and you're trying to play some of these games, then you're on your own. However it is you end, as you make your bed, so you're going to lie on it. So long as you have a plan, I guess you'll do okay. But either way, you have to be prepared with the sales process for dealing with either discount shoppers or your ideal audience. We always need to have a well thought out sales process. Who am I going after? Where do they hang out? How am I going to initiate the conversation with them? How do I find out what the perfect vision is? How do I figure out if I'm going to be able to fulfill that at the price that is okay for both of us? And how do I get them to come back for repeat business and referrals? So yeah, that's it. So long as you have a plan, I guess you'll be doing okay. So thank you very much for listening to the show. I'll catch you guys at the next recording. And a special thanks to those of you who've been listening from day one. We're finally here, 400 episodes. Thank you guys for hanging out here with me and for keeping me going strong. So here's looking forward to 400 more episodes. So yeah, y'all have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch you at the next recording.